What is up, everyone, and welcome back. We're here to break down the Arnold Palmer Invitational. This is one of my favorite events of the year. It's going to be a signature event. Only 72 golfers are in the field, but we do have a cut. So we have the top 50 and ties are going to make the cut. You got to think 53, 54, 55 golfers end up making the cut. At the very least, 70% of the field is going to stick around and play the weekend. So we should expect the 6-6 percentage in DFS to be pretty high. That said, you never really know how the chalk is going to fare. So there's a chance we get, a couple big names missing the cut. Hopefully they aren't on our rosters. Hopefully we faded those guys that end up missing the cut. But we have Bay Hill Club and Lodge. This is an awesome tournament. It is at Arnie's place. It is in Orlando. It's a par 72 that measures 7,466 yards. Each of the last 5 years, it's been in the top 10 in difficulty on the PGA Tour. We see a lot of winners in the single digits, which is very rare. Like even in majors, other than the U.S. Open, we typically see the winning score be at least double digit under par. So very difficult course. The fairways here, 32 yards wide on average, but the penalty for missing them is pretty high. So water's in play on 9 of the 18 holes. And then you have very thick rough. They're going to have 3 inches, 3-inch thick rough that is very difficult to play out of, especially since you're hitting into very fast greens. They are 7,500 square feet on average, which are pretty big, but they are difficult to hit. Last year, only 59% of the field hit the greens in regulation. And then you're going to get a lot of long irons as well. This is one of the only weeks that I can remember where Data Golf's course fit tool has driving distance and driving accuracy skewed in terms of above average, in terms of their importance compared to the tour average. So you're going to get good drivers of the ball to play well here. Typically, the tougher the course, the more important ball striking becomes, the more important tee green game becomes, and then putting is kind of an afterthought. Doesn't mean that you have to putt or you can't putt well and play well this week, but it's easier to gain strokes on the field, tee to green, than it is on the greens compared to something like a birdie fest where everyone's hitting the greens, everyone's hitting the fairways, everyone's giving themselves birdie looks. Then it often turns into a putting contest. I'm looking for good drivers of the ball, guys that have had success in Florida, guys that are good at majors, guys that are good on difficult courses, guys that are good putters on Bermuda, good long iron players, guys that play well in strong fields. All that fun stuff is what I am looking for this week at Bay Hill. Now let's get into the model. So again, I told you driving is very important for me this week. I have off the tee at 10% and then total driving at 3%. So that's 13% of the total 100% of the model going into driving metrics. Now, that's probably the highest it's going to be until we get to Augusta National. Then we have stroke gain approach at 11% combined. I weighted the expected approach column the most. This takes into account where golfers are expected to be hitting their approach shots from. So I expect Scheffler to gain the most, then Henley, then JT, Lowry, and Hoagie. Hoagie, again, great iron player. Everything else has been really bad, especially compared to this field. He's like bottom 5 in off the tee, around the green, putting. It's really bad. But, hey, the irons are great, and you never know. He can have a good week. He's had a couple top 15s here. So we have strokes gained around the green. You can bump this up if you want because these greens are difficult to hit. You probably want to be able to save par in order to keep that good round going. Strokes gained putting, I only put it at 8%, which is much lower than I typically do for the birdie fest. 3% to bogey avoidance, 3% to birdie or better percentage. Course history here has been very predictive year in and year out, and that is very strange for a Florida course because of all the water hazards. Typically, we see volatile course history. One ball hitting the water can be a 2-stroke penalty, and then you're ending up, because you're dropping from the same spot that you hit it from, especially on a couple of the holes here, and then, obviously that can make you miss the cut. So 5% to course history, 5% strokes gained in Florida over the last 3 years. You have Scheffler, Lowry, Clark, Hovland, and Xander kind of rounding out your top 5 there. Strokes gained on long and difficult courses, Rory, Xander, Fleetwood, Scheffler, and Finau. And the strokes gained in strong field events. Once again, Scheffler, Xander, Rory, Lowry, and Hovland. I have 5% weighted each of the finish percentiles, 5% weighted each of the long-term, midterm, and short-term form on a raw strokes gained basis, and then 9% to field strength index. Now let's talk about the player pool at the very top. I have Scotty Scheffler quite a ways ahead of the next closest guy, Rory McIlroy. So Scheffler's won here 2 of the last 3 years. He hasn't been in as good a form this year, But again, 2 top 10s and a T25 in 3 starts. The driver is kind of what's been holding him back a little bit. It was around the green game for a little bit. Now the driver, he's still gaining strokes with the driver, just not as many as usual. So I don't mind going down, taking the discount with Rory McIlroy. He's been a much better driver of the ball recently, as you can see here in 2025. Good iron player too. Pretty much a solid all-around game, and he does have an elite course history at Bay Hill. Now, one thing that I'm toying around with this week is playing Scheffler Rory lineups. You get $6,975 to spend per player for your other 4 spots. But again, 70+% of the field is going to make the cut. There's some decent plays in the 6K range. So if you can find 3 guys that you like in the 6Ks, round it out with somebody in the 7Ks, I certainly think it's viable to start with Scheffler and Rory. I might end up doing that in my main lineup. My outright bets this week, I wanted to bet Scheffler, but man, plus 350 just wasn't good enough for me. So I ended up going with Cantlay at plus 2,500. Or no, JT at plus 2,500 and Cantlay at plus 2,800 for my 2 outright bets. Then we have Xander, who's been hurt, coming off an injury. We haven't seen him on the TGL at all because of the injury. So I don't know what to expect. Sounds like he hasn't been able to practice a ton. He doesn't really know where his game stacks up. He hasn't, played great at this event anyway, even when he's been an elite golfer. So I'm perfectly fine fading Xander in all formats. Morikawa is an interesting one. Projects really well for me. But the problem with him is he doesn't play well in Florida. Look at these splits. He's got the worst of anyone in the field on a per round basis, which is very surprising. He struggled with the players. He struggled here. So I don't know. He's a good total driver of the ball, great long iron player. The short game has made huge strides over the last, 18 months. So on paper, he should be good for this course, but for whatever reason, he just hasn't been great in Florida. So I'm torn on what to do with Morikawa. I do like Ludwig coming off the win. Hideki rates out extremely well for me. He's a guy that is probably good for a top 20 finish. We probably want a little bit more at this price point, but I do think he's a safe play at 9,300. Again, Cantlay, I bet him outright, so I obviously like him to play well this week. He's got 4 top 5s in his last 10 starts. The off the tee game's been good. The around the green game's been good. And the putter's been good. The approach game's kind of held him back over the last 18 months, but the last 2 events, he's gained 4.4 and 3.5 strokes with the iron. So I think something's clicking there. I think he could be a very interesting play at 9,500. Tommy Fleetwood always seems to play well on difficult courses, as you can see here. One of the best metrics in the field. Always seems to play well in the strong fields too. Coming off the top 5 at Torrey. So it's certainly no issue with Tommy. Henley at 8,800 is interesting. Lowry at 8,200 is interesting. 2 guys that always play well in Florida, as you can see here. 2 guys that played well last week. 2 guys that finished in the top 5 here last year. Now, they're not bombers. They're not great drivers of the ball, but they are accurate. Henley, more accurate than distance. Lowry's got a little bit of both. So I do like those guys. They project well for me too. And if Lowry's going to be 10%, sign me up for that. JT, still like him in all formats. Again, I bet him outright. 3 top 10s in his last 4 starts. He built a course in Florida, lives in Jupiter, a couple top 25s in his last 2 starts here. So I do like JT quite a bit. No strong take on Sungjae. He's kind of been struggling recently. The same goes for Hovland. The same goes for Will Zalatoris, Cam Young. Like all these guys I don't have a strong take on. But yeah, Corey Connors, sign me up. Anytime you get him on a difficult course, this is always the time of the year where he picks it up. So he plays well here, plays well with the players, and then everybody plays him at the Masters for like $7,600. And he crushes there too. He's got 4 straight top 25s here. The ball striking is always good. So I do love Corey Connors in all formats. Finau is kind of interesting in tournaments. Keegan Bradley's been very consistent. Adam Scott's won the Players before. Matt McNeely kind of feels overpriced for the Florida swing for me. I don't think I can get there. Has struggled here in the past. Obviously, he's a better golfer now than he ever has been, but don't love McNeely this week. Aaron Rai coming off of a T4 finish. Hasn't been great here in the past. I'd probably rather play Zigala at similar ownership or even, 70, or not similar ownership, but at a similar price point. Berger, kind of a tough guy to capture if you use long-term statistics because, he was hurt for so long and he struggled for so long, but now he's back, 3 straight top 25s. He's a Florida guy. Don't mind looking his way in tournaments. I like Minwoo Lee a lot. He's been playing well. Great track record in Florida. Probably not going to be on Ben Griffin or Pendrith. Cam Young, I bet him to the top 10 plus 700. I don't think I need exposure to him in DFS, though. I like Harman. So if you are dipping down into the 6Ks, here's some of the guys that I like. I like Harman. I like Yeager. Glover's interesting after missing the cut on the number. He ended up making a birdie on his final hole to get to -4, and then the cut moved to -5, so that was kind of frustrating. Bazunau tends to play difficult courses, or no, he doesn't. So maybe take that back, but he has some good course history here. Plays well in Florida. So anyone else? Jason Day has won here before. He also has withdrawn and taking his family to Disney World the very next day. That was kind of funny. People that rostered him did not think it was quite so funny. I like Patrick Rogers on courses where you have to drive the ball well, so this qualifies. Harris English has won here before. Don't mind looking at him. Eric Coleman, salary. Novak's been playing well. Yeah, that'll do it for this week. So if you don't mind, hit that thumbs up button on your way out. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. Appreciate you guys watching. Catch you back here next week.